Political.
I vote for Ramble. And lots of it. Well, 45 minutes of it.
I would vote for Pete Donaldson for any party.
Who-
Whatever party you stood for, I would vote for you.
I could be Lord Buckethead and you wouldn't even know.
I'd love that.
We'd
all love that.
We'd
wouldn't
love
we?
a bit of
we would.
LB.
I've never seen him. I've never seen you and him in the same place at the same time.
Same
so-
pub.
Yeah.
Jim, you ready to talk about football?
Yes.
Good man. Luke Moore's back, by the way. In case
Welcome
you wondered
back,
who that
Luke
was.
Thank you for having me back. It's
You're
great to
looking
be
so
here.
tanned.
It's not true, is it?
No. Your freckles will come out,
He's
though.
got a yellow shirt on.
Look sun-kissed or embarrassed.
Thank you very
decide,
much.
ladies
I was
and
probably a bit
gentlemen.
of both.
Yeah, maybe.
Bit of both.
Maybe. Yes, let's start with some Premier League chat. Of course, the Premier League has finished. But it has been reported that Petr Cech will join Chelsea this summer in a brand new sporting director role.
Make your mind up, mate.
Yeah.
Back and forth.
Not been confirmed because old Petr came out and said, no, nothing's been decided and whatnot. And you think to yourself, hang on a minute.
He's waiting.
Hands up.
Someone has linked this. Now, I
Hands
heard,
up who's suspicious about the timing of this announcement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
we've all got our hands up in the studio, by the way. Apart from
Keep
Peter.
your hands up if you like me. Yeah, Luke likes me.
This was, according to that grapevine, this has been talked about for a few months now. But yes, who decided to release it now? A bit
Yeah.
naughty to try and throw him off.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's really unprofessional. Leno's got to play now." But obviously, it's these things take ages to finalise. I would imagine.
Well, he's not going to be
Yeah, I
distracted
mean,
by a contract, is he?
Including
paperwork.
included in those people were
Well.
ex-Arsenal goalkeeper David Seaman,
Really?
who says that Petr Cech. And I will say, I've got no beef with David Seaman. I've never met him before. I'm sure he's a lovely chap, but he has some of the worst takes I've ever seen. And this is the latest in a long line saying that Petr Cech, whatever you say, should be dropped for the Europa League final.
I think that is an interesting take, and I imagine him chuckling along as he said it because he just laughs constantly, doesn't he, David Seaman?
Yeah.
It's really
You're right
really
there.
endearing. I think he should be dropped.
Ray Parlour tells a story about David Seaman being really into fishing.
Yeah.
Have you heard this
Yeah, that
story?
doesn't surprise
And he
me.
asked him to come around and see his fishing boat. Have you heard this story?
I don't know.
So Ray
Shall I
Parlour
hear it?
rushes round there to see his fishing boat.
Rushes
Would you rush his round?
He's got a fishing boat.
I've got to
right?
see his boat. I've got to see his boat.
This is back in the
Come on, get on, Matt. Get on
me, the
board.
rushing run for Pele.
get on to boat.
Get on to board.
This is the 90s, man. It was a big thing for players to have boats, I expect then. And
Right.
anyway,
Really? In a fishing
I
boat?
love that you're dying on this rushing hill.
yeah, he's rushing around there, Jim. Imagine the scene.
Who wants to see Seaman's boat?
Anyway, the story goes that he goes around to see it, and it turns out that the boat is like that big, and it's just one for bait, and the bait goes through the
Wish I hadn't rushed
but
round
the
here
fish,
now.
yeah, I think he was
Yeah.
pretty gutted about it.
Knackered.
Right.
David Seaman is so into fishing, he thinks that's a fishing boat.
David Seaman. It's funny because David Seaman does seem quite joyous and likeable, and you'd think he was quite wise and intelligent, and he may well be. But as Luke says, he often throws us off the scent.
Well, he
if
doesn't
that
do a
is
lot.
true.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
He's not seen a lot on the media, but maybe he blotted his copybook with some absolute outlandish shouts, and
So
this is
the-
his second
He
coming.
refused to autograph my mate's programme at Wembley once because he was wearing his gloves.
That's
That's kind of
dues,
fair
isn't it?
enough,
Yeah,
Yeah.
wasn't starting.
Game on, mate.
No, in which case, take one
fair.
off.
You shouldn't have your gloves
Take
on.
one off.
I don't know.
The hat trick I refer to when it comes to terrible takes, I mean, I can tell you what they are. This is the
Please.
Petr Cech hat trick one.
Uh-huh.
The second one was that David De Gea, and he said this last week,
Yep.
that David De Gea is a better goalkeeper than Ederson. And
Yeah, that's
the one before
no.
that, he said that Arsenal were a better proposition for Aaron Ramsey than Juventus.
yeah.
Jim, defend it. Defend it, Jim.
No, they are tepid at best. those
Not even
takes.
Adams, Keown, Dixon, and Winterburn could defend that.
They could
Yeah.
only just whimsically ask for offside.
Yeah, they are from the halfway line. Those takes.
Yeah.
So yeah, the thing is, this Czech thing. It's just it's a slow news week,
It's
isn't
an
it?
elaborate
It
ruse.
is, yeah.
Do you think it's an
Proper
elaborate ruse?
post-season
Well, I think
stuff, innit?
this is sort of incremental, marginal gains, right? Chelsea thinking, well, this might be slightly to our advantage, so let's put it out there. Maybe it will sort of put some confusion in over
I
whether
sort of-
Czech or
the
Leno
boot-
starts. But I think Czech will start
The boot
regardless.
was on the other foot if it was a Chelsea goalkeeper or something like
Oh
that.
yeah,
and Arsenal
yeah.
released it.
I'd
You-
want
you-
Arsenal to do that.
You'd
absolutely.
chuckle. You
Do you
would.
do you remember when in FIFA they have obviously during the game you have like a contract discussion. And Petr Cech, they had the same player model
Oh,
for
yeah.
the boardroom discussion. He still had his helmet on.
Yeah.
we
This
might
is
get to
what I'm
see it.
imagining.
We
That's
might
what
get
I'm
to see it.
imagining.
Yeah.
Some people would wear the helmets in the crowd at Arsenal. to support Petr Cech.
I thought it were wayward
Mm.
shots.
No, I've been
Okay.
to Arsenal and I've seen people with the Petr Cech helmet on.
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, just
like
as like
that.
a fan.
Speaking of
There are a
conflict
lot of helmets at Arsenal. Often recording blogs outside the stadium.
Every club,
Oh.
Jim. Let's be fair.
That's a bit
every
rich.
club.
You literally did that earlier on today.
I think
You know the
that's-
ones I mean.
think that's
You
what it
know the
was.
ones I mean.
Talking of conflict of interest, like the situation in the Netherlands second tier.
Oh, I didn't
You
see
talk-
what happened last night.
You spoke about this on the continent. It's fascinating. So it was a relegation playoff, was
Yeah.
it? as
let
I
me
understand
tell
it?
you exactly because I've got it in my notes here.
Here
My
we go.
memory
Get
does
your-
not
get the old
extend.
notes out, get the
So
old
the game
notes
was last night, the second leg.
Yeah.
But the situation, do you guys know about this?
No.
So the situation was this, right? Henk de Jong was the manager of De Graafschap, who were a top tier Eredivisie side in Netherlands. They were playing a relegation playoff against a team called Cambuur, who were in the second tier, and the second leg was last night. The first leg was 1-1. The kicker here is that De Graafschap manager Henk de Jong has already signed a deal to manage Cambuur next season. Right? Last night, De Graafschap won 2-0. So they stay in the top tier,
So
which
he's-
now means that Henk de Jong has to go and manage in the second tier for a team that he
so
signed.
his
there. He made
professionalism can't be questioned.
Yeah.
But he could have thought to himself, do you know what? I could make some questionable
Save myself,
substitutions,
yeah.
and I'll be managing still in the
How mad,
Eredivisie.
how mad is that as a
That
story?
is
right?
crazy.
It is,
Yeah.
particularly
I mean,
strange.
I think going back to Czech though, he's a model professional, isn't he? I don't think anyone would doubt that. So I think this won't play on his mind. and
No,
it'll
no,
be-
I don't think
No,
so.
but,
be
it,
fine.
you know, if you're go on,
He's
Jim.
just not very good anymore. That's the
I
problem.
wouldn't say he's not very good
come on,
anymore.
Jim.
Yeah, I think that's a
Don't
that's
have
a
that.
stupid take.
You
but
know
yeah.
why I said it, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
to wind me up.
because you
yeah.
love David Seaman.
But I think it's this isn't really the headline about the game, is it?
Is it not?
in Baku?
No.
Well, yes. Henrik Mkhitaryan is
Can-
not allowed in the country.
And not just Henrik Mkhitaryan. There are some Arsenal fans with Armenian heritage who've been denied access
Can-
to the
can
It's a
the
country,
people's
who've
game,
bought
Jim.
tickets.
It's open to all.
Can
So-
I deliver?
yeah.
Can I deliver a take on this? And I don't know why I keep saying that. I hate the word hot take normally, but this show's just been. And I'm going to put this out here, and you guys can batter me all you like. And I said this off air yesterday to James Horncastle and Andy Brassel on the content. We didn't get a chance to talk about it, but we talked about it off air. I have found myself feeling quite passionately that Arsenal should boycott this. Now I understand why they won't. And I completely get that Champions League football is a big thing, and they get to a European final. Arsenal haven't won a European title before, have they? For example, I don't think.
Yeah, no, Cup Winners'
Cup Winners' Cup.
Cup is cups, of
and
course
the
they have.
Fairs Cup in the
Okay, but so in this current iteration, they've not won it, and they want to be back in the Champions League. So I totally get it. I'm not blaming you. I'm not having a go at them for not doing it. But I think what's happened here is the thin end of a very worrying wedge, and Arsenal should boycott it, and Chelsea should support them. in it.
Did we not say this on the podcast? They should be boycotting it massively. It's
I
a
was on the
disgrace.
show Monday, wasn't I?
It's unfit for purpose. Like if you're literally making a selection decision, if the government of the country that you're doing the final in is making a selection decision so that a team is effectively underpowered because they don't have access to all the football,
Well,
it's a disgrace, isn't it?
that isn't
Yeah.
quite what's happened though, because
Couldn't guarantee their
Mkhitaryan has
safety.
been told that he will be fine, and
But
the
he's
buck
not felt
has-
that he can
No,
travel.
he hasn't felt that he
Yeah.
can travel, and UEFA have just basically passed the buck onto him and to Arsenal, and that's a very difficult situation for Arsenal to be in. I understand why they wouldn't boycott it. The amount of money at stake and all of these things that make modern football tick in the way that it does, I think, as lovely as it would be if Arsenal
be so
stepped
good
up
if
and
they
did
went,
that,
"Nah,
it would be
we're not having
brilliant.
it."
But realistically, I can't see it happening. But I just feel like UEFA's constant guff about how the game's for everybody and it's supposed to be inclusive and all this stuff that they trot out and the supposed things they put in place to combat racism and that sort of thing. We see here with this example that it's empty and meaningless. It's nothing. You cannot trust them.
But-
you cannot believe what UEFA say. They have no credibility and just no credibility.
It's like the
at all.
Italian FA saying racism is bad.
Yeah.
But
And then they don't bother finding anyone.
The devil's advocate position, and the reason I say like that is because I don't actually necessarily personally subscribe to it. They would adopt, and it's FIFA do it as well, is they say that you have to lead the way. You have to show the example. So you have to give these countries, and FIFA do it with the World Cup. This is one of the excuses they used for example, Qatar having the World Cup, and actually to a lesser extent, Russia.
That's true, yeah.
It can't just be a closed shop. You can't have the UEFA or the Europa League final and the Champions League final just circling around Spain, France, Germany, and England. It has to. They have to show the way, and in order to encourage countries like Azerbaijan to do what we would consider to be the right thing, of course, you have to kind of encourage them as well as it's a carrot and a stick type thing,
you
right?
do, but there should be a criteria that has to be met.
Yeah.
And if you don't meet that criteria, then sorry, but you can't have that.
Well,
if you've got
I-
a particular
yeah.
situation where people from a certain country cannot come into the country, it's just absurd. It's just absolutely backward, and just there's no place in it in 2019, let
Yeah.
alone in football.
And you're right. And if Mkhitaryan, who's Arsenal's third highest scorer,
Yep.
in the Europa League or all together, this
I
season,
think in all competitions.
he's made a contribution.
Yeah.
But if he was the star performer,
If he was Aubameyang,
let's say if he was the Premier League Player of the Year, and then this happened,
Yeah.
it'd be a bigger deal, and it shouldn't have to be that.
No, that's
But
right.
with regards to taking finals and whatnot elsewhere, well, Moscow, Kiev, and Istanbul, off the top of my head, have had big European finals recently. So they have done that to an extent. Athens as well is another one. You know, Azerbaijan have games in the Euro 2020
Yes.
competition coming up where it's a bit
Right.
scattered.
And the US had to change something, didn't they? Because there was a situation where the US were bidden to host the World Cup, and there were concerns about their immigration policy, which they then had to agree to change
I see.
in order to get the nod,
Yeah.
basically. So these things are clearly fluid situations.
It's fluid, but it's also they're making compromises where money is involved on a massive level. You look at like the way that the UAE have joined in the bid for the under-21s or the under-20 World Cup with Saudi Arabia and Bahrain in 21. You're sort of going, right, are you bidding for the Women's World Cup there?
Well,
so
you're
they'll
absolutely
bid
right.
for the part that
Yeah.
they
they
think
laid
is
like,
palatable.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you, Pete. And I
And
think
FIFA will
that-
just go, where's the money? Yeah, we'll take it. Cool.
You're absolutely right. That's how these things work, sadly. With regards to Azerbaijan and Baku, it is a very controversial place to have the final. Now, no one's saying, well, why is it there? That's a silly little country or something. That's not the thing. People, I think sometimes UEFA react as if people are saying those words. That is not the case.
No.
Yeah.
Everywhere should have a chance
Yeah.
within reason.
But they have to be ready.
But of course they
the
do.
old
And if-
airport thing and all that kind of
completely.
thing.
But if
Yeah.
they're not ready, then maybe they will be in 5 years' time or something.
Yeah, with infrastructure or
Exactly, 'cause
politically, if you're not
Yes.
willing to be a global power, if you're
Yeah.
not willing to be a global country, then sorry, that is closed off to you, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Either grow up or go home.
Yeah.
They are
Well,
home.
stay home.
Yeah, they
We're
are.
going,
Stay home.
we're going to them.
Stay home, if anything.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the problem.
Indeed, yeah.
Also, it's worth pointing out as well that no one could have known that it would be two teams from London that would get to the final. Obviously, that's the trip, because a lot of this has been about the distance.
Yeah, I feel that's a non-issue. Though,
Exactly.
No,
personally.
it's
yeah, I mean, it's very, very expensive for sets of both fans to come. And I think both clubs have actually given tickets back, which is,
That's right.
is pretty amazing.
And there was
but that
very
is just
few
a
tickets
quirk of-
up for grabs, wasn't it?
Yeah,
16,000 each or something?
6,500
Or
each, I think
6,500,
it was.
sorry, right.
Yeah, great shame.
Crazy.
Maurizio Sarri has said that if his Chelsea career goes down to this game, then he'd rather be sacked now.
I
See,
love
I love that.
I
'cause
do.
we're not talking about Petr Cech anymore. Sarri stepped up and gone, yeah.
Sarri's like mode, like the way he operates is so funny. Like the other quote, what's the other quote he said?
He said, "You're either happy with my work or you're not."
It's brilliant.
And he said, basically, if you're putting 10 months of work to go down to 90 minutes, he says that's pretty ridiculous.
But I love an employee going into his boss's office and saying, "Okay, how do you think it's going?" Well, you're either happy with my work or you're not. I've got no interest.
The,
in
the
it.
like
stockroom's on fire,
Yeah.
Mauricio.
Yeah.
I do like it though, because managers often don't, understandably so, put their head above the parapet when their job is on the line, or at least being talked about. And him to just stand up and go, "But this is what I do. You know this. Well, you knew it before. You certainly bloody know it now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you like it or not? Because you might as well get rid of me. Because if it goes down to this game, I'm sorry."
The strength of character for that, given
Yeah.
that Sarri isn't from within the world of football and worked his way up from, from just having a sort of civilian job, I suppose you might say, is incredible.
But maybe
to
that's.
just-
But is there an element, perhaps, that he sees it as a job, whereas maybe if you're into football and whatnot, you perhaps don't see it in
Well, he's
normal
been quite-
employment terms, if you see what I mean.
He's been quite vocal. Well, he's been quite vocal about everything. But he's been quite vocal about the idea that he hasn't financially got out of football an amount commensurate with the amount of work he's put in. I think that's why he's keen to
Get a payoff.
stay. Yeah, to do something like that. Or
I
maybe
mean,
even
his
stay at
contract
Chelsea.
is worth £5 million a year, is it not?
Because apparently there's talk of Juventus having to pay £5 million compensation to get him from
Right.
Chelsea.
If they go for him.
But Chelsea are 11-8 favourites to win the Europa League in 90 minutes on Wednesday night. £10 with Bet365 returns £23.75 including stake.
There we are. Turn our attention to Manchester United. They and their goalkeeper have been in the press of late. Could be parting ways with David De Gea soon. He's not signed a new contract. His current deal goes up until the end of next season. 2020, summer of 2020. And there's reports that if they did sell him, they may try and cash in now while his stock is still reasonably high.
Talk of Romero stepping into his shoes.
Romero stepping into his shoes.
We can finally settle our debate, Marcus. We can see it in. I said that Romero is the best second choice keeper in the Premier League.
Yeah,
and I think he could do a good job as a number one.
Well, as Romero, I understand what you mean, but I think of Romero as mainly Argentina goal because he's got 96 caps. Whereas actually, if you look at his club, Racing Club in. I think that's in Argentina. Is it Racing Club?
Yeah, it will be. Yeah.
And then he went to AZ in the Eredivisie, then Sampdoria for 4 years. Then he was at Monaco on loan, only played 3 league games there. And then since being at Manchester United, has played 7 league games. He's played 10 league games in the last 6 years.
Sure.
That is
got to
not
be question marks.
That's not first choice for Manchester United for my money.
But you've got to be given it. I mean, I get that, and I'm totally sympathetic to that viewpoint. But I think it's kind of hard to judge him until he's had a chance. And he's never really, those 7 league games he's played for Man United, they would have probably all been under the idea that as soon as De Gea is available again, he'll be out.
Well, Van Gaal put him in as first choice for a little bit.
Love that.
Yeah. Make what you will of that, everyone. I mean, Romero is a decent keeper, and he's certainly a very good number 2. I just wonder if you're a Manchester United fan, are you particularly happy with that? But then if they're concerned that De Gea is not signing the contract, then cashing in would probably make sense. Because I don't think next season I think they'll struggle for top 4 again next season unless they make big signings. But the signings they need to make, goalkeeper's not the priority.
No, it's not. And the one of the most damning indictments from Man United at the moment, I feel like, is that there was an interesting quote from a source close to Jadon Sancho. Did you guys read this? Well, they said United were in for Jadon Sancho. They want to sign him, think he's a Man United type player, and I can see why, of course. And
what does that even mean nowadays?
Well,
he's really good at football,
but the report,
therefore he'd be welcome at us.
But the quote that came out was something like Jadon Sancho isn't convinced that the quality at Man United is something that he wants to be involved in. And it's easy to see why now, because
he could be another fringe player, couldn't he?
But the thing is, OP, imagine someone saying that about Man United 10 years ago.
I know.
Yeah.
That's how far
not even 10.
He's not even an established international player, Jadon Sancho.
But Jadon Sancho nearly won the Bundesliga this season. He's in the England squad.
Exactly.
It'd be mad if he moved, unless it was to a Barcelona or Real Madrid.
Definitely. I mean, they are far down the list of clubs that you want to join in the Premier League.
It's the problem for them.
And it's that slippery slope.
And that's why they're overspending.
Well, what about Wan Bissaka? Because Manchester United, there are reports that they're maybe going to enter the bidding with £25 million, and then Crystal Palace say, we value him at £70 million.
Yeah.
That could rumble on for a little
I feel
bit.
like the planet could run out of money because of the Premier League if we're not careful.
And George Mendes has got most of it.
This is an issue, though, isn't it? The agents' fees are so high. Substantial amounts of those millions go to the agents.
But one player Manchester United are looking very close to signing is Daniel James from Swansea. Reported for around 15 million, 21-year-old. So a different situation there. You go a guy who's in a sort of a mid-table or top half championship side. So he's going to go to Manchester United. Though the sad reports are his father's just died. Which throws a spanner in the works.
It's a real shame for him and the family, of course.
Do you think? Of course, absolutely dreadful news. But do you? Is it an indictment of United? I'm asking the question. I'm not trying to sort of be naughty. Is it an indictment of United that's the player they're after as well?
Could be.
Is that not a better sign than signing another face?
It reminds me a bit of when Liverpool signed Paul Konchesky.
I wonder
which
about
I was
this as
supportive
well.
of at the time.
They did a lot of that kind of behaviour, though. To be fair.
I see what you're saying, Luke. But I think they are probably trying to adopt a different approach, as Pete's touched on there, because throwing sort of big name signings at the squad has perhaps imbalanced it because they've not been looking at what they need on the pitch. More so, just looking first at status. Maybe that's an oversimplified way of looking at it, but it certainly feels like there are examples of that within the squad. But I think the problem is that Daniel James, that it's 15 to 20 million. I've seen it described as, and can you still do that? Can you still pick up these exciting young prospects
I'll tell you why
for a little bit of money?
I'll tell you why they signed him. They watched Swansea go 2-0 up against Man City, and Daniel James worry that back line. They're thinking, is he some sort of weird kryptonite type player? He actually was a player who genuinely worried Manchester City for however long. Get him in. We need anything that we can get.
The reason everyone's linking everyone with Man United with everyone is partly surely because they've got no structure. So they've got no plan. There's talk today that they're going to put together a sort of brains trust of some old players to help them target good players, trying to ape the Liverpool model. Well, the Liverpool model, as far as I understand it, is headed up by a guy whose name I forget now, annoyingly, who has got a real history in statistics and in data and in analysis, and it's been very, very important in terms of the players they've gone out and got. Now we can all say, 75 million for Van Dijk. It's pretty obvious signing. But they would have crunched the numbers on that. And I just don't know whether chucking together 3 old players and saying, can you help us find some players, is really going to do an awful lot.
I feel like I could sell Ed Woodward a horse.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's like the Jack Lang tweet we talked about the other week, where it was like, looking forward to this Ajax side being broken up and Ed Woodward making a bid for Klaas-Jan Huntelaar. It's that kind of thing. And the other thing is they're being linked with different kinds of players, and you could argue that's because they need strengthening all over the pitch, which they probably do. But the Wan-Bissaka thing, he's got a contract of 2022, and he's not going to be. Yeah, he's not going to be a ridiculously low earner because no player who's a first-team player in the Premier League really is now. So, are United going to want to gamble to that extent? I think Palace are within their rights to ask for a lot of money because of his potential, but then that just really tests how much United want him because you're not going to get him for 25. I mean, these days that's a joke. He's been one of the best fullbacks in the Premier League this season.
Absolutely.
But also, sorry, Marcus, but you now get the thing where, what if it doesn't work out?
Well,
what if it doesn't work out for Wan-Bissaka and he becomes this like £75 million flop?
Like Zaha went there from the same route for a lot of money.
Absolutely, but the money wasn't quite as ridiculous.
No.
I think we're going to start.
Jim, come on.
Well,
Is that why you're writing your Tinder? What if this never works out?
They'll play that horse you sold him at fullback. It'll be fine. Got 4 legs.
Blimey, it should be okay. Some players are going to leave Manchester United, and Juan Mata seems to be one. There's reports.
He's literally one.
Yes, he is. There's reports that little Rafa Benitez might be interested in him joining Newcastle.
Pete, little Raffy.
Yeah, he's definitely a Mike Ashley player, isn't he? Like a man who's, was he 31? He's getting on. He's probably on over £100,000 a week.
Join on a free, though.
Yeah.
Join on a free, yeah. Well, he
All
doesn't.
right, we'll give you 40 grand a week.
I was about to say, Ashley doesn't know. On a free, you say? What? So we don't have to pay him? No, Mike. That's not how.
He doesn't pay anyway.
Yeah. Well, apparently, so that could be an option for Juan Mata if Mike Ashley falls asleep during the deal. Barcelona are also interested. It's a difficult one.
Yeah.
Can I just say something that I think every listener listening to this is saying right now? I would be staggered. I would be absolutely. I actually think there's more chance of Jim selling Ed Woodward a horse.
I've gone on
Mr. Ed.
record multiple times that I bloody love Juan Mata, and he's been ruined by Jose Mourinho on 2 occasions, and I would love him in a Newcastle shirt. He's never going to.
He came down and watched one of our games at Regent's Park.
He did. Yeah.
That genuinely. Hey.
He came down with his girlfriend and watched our
Pete,
match.
I was under the impression that Marcus was about to let the truth get in the way of a good story, which is not the MO of this show.
All right, fine. I didn't nutmeg him then.
Pete, would you take Mourinho at Newcastle if that meant you could have Mata?
You would. Come on.
Absolutely right.
Mourinho at Newcastle.
I don't
would
think
be
Juan
hilarious.
Mata. Yeah,
It'd
it
be
would be
absolutely
good.
hilarious.
Yeah, it
And
would
then
be
if he blamed Rafa Benitez for the poor work he did beforehand, and what the trouble.
You know, when I said earlier I wasn't trying to be naughty about Man United, it was a genuine question.
Be naughty now.
Man United are 16-1 to win next season's Premier League.
Okay.
£10 with Bet365 returns £170 including stake.
It's a long, close season, Lou.
Very
Have
good.
some respect.
Very good.
Not as long as they need.
Before we go to emails, nice little transfer here that Kieran Trippier is very close to joining Napoli, apparently.
You could almost hear them biting their flipping arm off, can't you?
I'd love to hear Trippier try a bit of Neapolitan.
I would. I would.
It's the most violently northern man I've ever heard speak. Atletico Madrid have come in for him as well, allegedly, to replace Juan Fran, who I think is moving on.
You can say reportedly rather than allegedly.
Well, either doesn't matter.
That's true. That's true.
Apparently, I just like Poch is interested in developments. Like he's open to offers, and you're going, yeah, he bloody will be, won't he?
Yeah.
The thing is with Trippier though, he's been a big part of like the Champions League run for Spurs and whatnot. Well, a part of it certainly. I don't want to. He's not had a great season.
Well, look, he's not had a great season, but Marcus, you have to absolutely right. He's played and they're in the final.
Yeah, and he will start the final.
Let's not be detrimental to the guy. I mean, he's part of the team.
He's still got something to offer. He had a brilliant World Cup. He was good before that. This season, not so much, but that can happen. But providing both parties are still keen on this deal, it may well happen after the Champions League final. I think if you're preparing for a Champions League final, you probably don't want.
Would you have played so many matches this season if they'd had a slightly deeper squad, though?
Possibly not.
No, probably not.
But we sat outside this very studio, not 10 paces away, and watched that man banging a free kick in a World Cup semi-final less than a year ago.
Yeah.
So let's all have a bit of respect.
If we're still saying that in 2 or 3 years' time.
Go well.
Well, the expectations for him this season were a lot higher as well, weren't they?